Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining me today for this Facebook Live. We do this every day, Mondays through Fridays at 12:30 p.m. So if you like this, feel free to check us out every day. And if you like content like this one, go ahead and check out our website at azscience.org. Well, again, my name's Chloe, and today we're talking about atoms. No, not Adam like your neighbor, atoms. Atoms are the things that make everything up. So if you've ever felt your arm, if you've taken and put your hand in some water, maybe you've had some soda, all of those things, they're all made up of atoms. The rock on the ground, maybe even the salt that you're using, everything is made up of atoms. But what does that mean? What are atoms? Atoms are the smallest unit of matter that create chemical elements, and everything is essentially made up of some kind of a combination of chemical elements. So if you think about, let's see, maybe salt that you use when you're cooking and you put that in some water, or even you just add some to your pasta to make it taste a little bit better, you're adding some kind of combination of those atoms. Now, atoms have their own kind of structure. So just like how when I form a sentence, I can create a whole sentence, but each sentence has different words in it, that's exactly the same thing. So a whole piece of paper, for example, is made up of a bunch of different combinations of those molecules. Those are the different words, the different letters in those words. So today we're talking about how atoms are made up. So atoms have two main parts. They're going to be made up of a nucleus, and that's going to be the inside part. Lots of cells have a nucleus as well. It tends to be considered kind of like the brain of something, as well as electrons. And electrons are going to be orbiting around the nucleus. So inside of the nucleus, there are protons and neutrons. Have you heard words like this before? Well, protons are going to have a positive charge, like it's being progressive, it's positive, and electrons that are circling the nucleus, those have a negative charge. Well, what about those neutrons? What does it sound like? Is there a word that sounds like neutron that you've heard before? Perhaps neutral? Yeah, so the protons and the electrons have a positive and negative charge that are going to cancel each other out, and those neutrons are just neutral and hanging out over there. So what does that mean for us and what we're doing today? Well, we're going to create our own atom models. So all you need, if you want to follow along, is a paper plate. I've got one right here, and you can use anything you'd like to draw with. I'm going to use some crayons that I have. And I'm also going to need something to act as the electrons. So if you want to glue your electrons and your protons and your neutrons, go ahead and get something to use. You can either use little pom-poms, or you could use, in this case, I have some beads. So I have some different colored beads. But what you want to do is just at least make sure to select 3 different colors, because you're going to want one color to represent your protons. You want one color to represent your neutrons, and you want one color to represent those electrons. Did I say electrons already? No, protons, neutrons, electrons, yeah. So I'm gonna pick 3 colors, and if you do use something like the beads, you're going to want to have some glue on the side, so that way you can glue them on if you want this to be a nice, colorful model like that. Or, again, you can just use some crayons if you have those as well. Now the first thing that I'm going to have you do is we're going to create an oxygen molecule. Have you heard of oxygen before? Why does that sound familiar? Well, maybe take a deep breath in with me. Ready? And let it out. Guess what? You just breathed in some of those oxygen molecules. So we're going to make our own oxygen molecule. And in order to do that, I'm going to pull out those 3 separate colors. So I think for my protons, I'm going to use purple because it starts with a P. I think for my electrons, I'm going to choose something that sounds electric. Maybe I'll choose yellow. And for my neutrons, what's a pretty neutral color? I'm going to pick brown. Brown's just kind of in the middle. I hope that's brown. Looks kind of brown to me. All right, so I've got a color for my protons, my electrons, as well as my neutrons. But now I need to draw some rings that we can use to represent where those electrons are traveling around the nucleus. So for oxygen, I'm going to choose green because green's my favorite color. And I'm going to draw 2 circles. So I'll show you what that looks like first. So here's one circle, and here's another big circle. So that's what my circles look like. I don't know if you can see them very well. Yeah, you can kind of get a decent look at that. So you can see I've got 2 rings. And now I'm going to draw my protons, my neutrons, and my electrons. How many protons, neutrons, and electrons do we think something like oxygen might have? Well, oxygen is a pretty easy one to remember. Oxygen has 8 protons, 8 neutrons, and 8 electrons. So we just need to remember that we need to draw 8 of all of those things. So I'm going to start with my neutrons in my nucleus. So the nucleus is going to be inside the rings, and I'm going to draw 8 little purple circles. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You can kind of see them at the very center. And now for my neutrons. So those were my protons. I don't remember if I said that. So I'm going to draw a little plus sign inside of each of my little protons there. But again, if you are using something like beads or pom-poms and you're just gluing them on, you don't have to draw the plus signs. But you may want to draw them someplace else so that way you can remember when you look back at this. Next, I'm going to draw my neutrons. They're very neutral. I've got my brown, and they're going to go all around those protons. So I've got 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So now I have 8 protons, 8 neutrons inside of my nucleus. But what comes next? I have protons, neutrons. That's right, the electrons. So I have my yellow, and I am going to color 8 electrons around these rings, but there's 2 of them. How do I know which 2 I should use? Well, each ring is only going to be able to hold so many electrons. So in that first ring, it can only hold 2. So I'm going to draw 1 electron, 2 electrons. And they have a negative charge. So again, I'm just going to draw a little minus sign inside of them so I remember. All right, so I've got 2 electrons inside of that first ring. But if I have 2 electrons inside of that first ring, how many more electrons do I need? How many electrons are there total in the oxygen molecule? I think there's 8, and 8 minus 2 that I've already drawn is 6. So I'm going to draw 6 more. Now, these 6 are going to all go into this outside ring. 3, 4, 5, and 6. You might be able to see, maybe you can't see, I should have chosen some brighter colors, but 2 of them are paired up. So 2 of them have 2 over here, and then I've got some lonely ones over here. That's because on this outer shell, it can hold up to 8 electrons. But those 8 electrons, 2 of them are already on the inside, so it can technically hold a few more. So those 2, they're going to be looking for buddies. So if you want to draw some other molecules, maybe you can draw something that has an extra electron and they can share it, and you can build your own molecule chain. Well, thank you so much for joining me today for this Facebook Live. Again, if you like this course and you want to see more things like this, please feel free to check out our website at azscience.org, as well as these Facebook Lives that we do every day at 12:30 Mondays through Fridays. Again, my name's Chloe. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.